The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
Every day I bring you new ideas from brilliant thinkers who back up their ideas with facts and well-supported logic. I often agree with almost everything they say. Sometimes I totally disagree. But through it all comes the agenda that started this show in the first place, which was the idea of Bernie or bust. In short, the underlying premise of this entire show is electoral leverage. Today I'll bring you some of the ideas from 3 different writers, and I'll try to weave them together with the idea that we need to hold our fellow voters accountable more than we need to hold DNC insiders accountable. It can be very difficult to let go of the idea that we can solve our problems at the ballot box. And while I wouldn't mind if this show evolved into a clearinghouse for different ways to protest and strike effectively, I still think there is a place for electoral leverage. Yes, we've determined again that in this election cycle, we don't have anyone for whom we can vote who is progressive. And until we amass as many billions of dollars as the DNC donors have, we'll never be able to put more pressure on the DNC insiders than the moguls do. But one thing that most of my readers and listeners have noticed in both of the last 2 election cycles is that the DNC insiders spend a lot of effort managing our consent. They spend a lot of time, effort, and money on mainstream media messaging. They spend a lot of time and money on narrative management so that they can control the way comfy Democrats think about politics. It stands to reason that if they spend so much effort trying to control the narrative and trying to control the way the people who watch mainstream media think, that there must be some powerful reasons to do so. So if those of us on the left who identify with workers, especially impoverished workers, want to change anything, we probably will have to compete with mainstream media and those who pay the mainstream media for the hearts and minds and thoughts of our fellow voters. The algorithms on YouTube and on Twitter and on Facebook make it difficult for the small media people to get their messages out. But electoral leverage is one way we can push the voters around with a small budget. This is the idea that we need to make go viral. If 80% of people who supported Bernie in the last 2 election cycles decided to send the message clearly and without any blinking that we will never ever vote for corporatist candidates in primary elections ever again, the DNC insiders might not care, but our fellow voters would probably blink. If the snide, snarky, sneering, snarling Democrats we see on our Facebook pages really believed that we wouldn't blink first, it would affect their behavior. And in the final analysis, we would then be able to compete with mainstream media with a much smaller budget. Some of the mainstream media, like USA Today, would even help us get the word out. Emerson Polling and Morning Consult would help us get the word out. If 80% of Bernie supporters just simply said, we will not vote for corporatists, the polling would pick it up and some of the media would pick it up. A majority of Americans support Bernie's party platform. Now, if the DNC provided candidates who were actually moderate as opposed to right-wingers, it would be more difficult to use this leverage strategy. But the DNC keeps serving us up purely evil candidates. And that's why this will work if we can find a critical mass of voters who are truly progressive, who won't blink first, who will face down the comfy suburbanites and tell them, nope, no more, we're not voting for your shitty candidates ever, ever again. And so here's the message we need to deliver to the lefty pundits. We also can't blink. We also can't allow left-leaning voters to vote for corporatists under any circumstances. We have to keep them on the hook in the same way that union people hold each other accountable for not being scabs. And if we hold the line, the comfy suburbanites who really hate Republicans will toe our line instead of the other way around. And that's why, dear viewers and listeners, I keep harping on you to get the word out to our favorite lefty pundits and to your fellow voters that we simply can't keep voting for lesser evil candidates. We need to push our fellow voters harder than the mainstream media can push them. If voting is ever going to matter again, we have to use electoral leverage as well as riots and protests to get the job done. So here are some more reasons not to vote for the current corporatist. Let's begin with Hamid Dabashi, who explains why he will not vote for Joe Biden. I'm going to skip the part where he apologizes for people like Cornel West and Noam Chomsky, and I'm going to skip right to his argument. As you know, I feel no need to apologize for Norm Solomon or Noam Chomsky or Cornel West. If they tell us they're voting for a corporatist, they can go fuck off. Hamid is much more polite than I am about this issue. And if you've been following my line of reasoning, you'll know why this more militant attitude is required.
Revolt Against Plutocracy won't just be covering the news about the necessary revolution in the United States. Sometimes we'll be making the news. If you want to stay on top of the revolutionary actions and strategies of grassroots, genuine progressives, and our allies, please subscribe to our YouTube channel today.